Everybody, let's take 5 minutes out of our day and meditate on God's Word together. The parable of the Good Samaritan is one of the most well-known parables of Jesus, and for good reason. But let's take a moment and read this together. In Luke 10, verse 30, Jesus replied, "A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell among robbers who stripped him and beat him and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. So likewise a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came to where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. He went to him and bound up his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he set him on his own animal and brought him to an inn and took care of him. And the next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, 'Take care of him, and whatever more you spend, I will repay you when I come back.' Which of these 3 do you think proved to be a neighbor to the man who fell among the robbers?" The lawyer said, "The one who showed him mercy." And Jesus said to him, "You go and do likewise." Now to get to Jerusalem, to Judea from Galilee, both of which were Jewish territories, you had to go through Samaria, which is smack dab in the middle of ancient Palestine. And it was not Jewish territory. And the Jews and the Samaritans hated each other so much. Some Jews would even cross the Jordan River and go south around Samaria through the Decapolis, which was pagan territory, to go to Jerusalem, just to avoid Samaria altogether. There were stories of Jews passing through Samaria and Samaritans throwing stones at them and yelling insults at them. They had quite a checkered history, one that I cannot summarize in 5 minutes. But needless to say, neither party was innocent. Both were guilty of various crimes over the centuries. And by the time of Jesus, they absolutely hated each other. Suffice it to say, this parable is not just about telling us be nice to each other. This is much, much deeper. Jesus is dealing with the heartbeat of racial, political, religious, and moral lines that people were using to justify not loving their neighbors. There was a lot of water under the bridge, a lot of issues in their day, and Jesus jumps right in here by saying a Samaritan, one who's hated most by the Jews, was somebody who actually helped this Jewish person. Now, this one thing this parable does is it challenges us to do something, not just debate something. Now, the lawyer in the story here, he wanted to engage in a theological discussion. Who is my neighbor? From Leviticus 19, it says you should love your neighbor. But who is your neighbor? Who do I have to love? But Jesus just circumvents that by saying, here is someone who is an enemy who did 6 concrete things to help him. It says he came to him, which is more than the priest and the Levite did. It says that he bound his wounds, he anointed him with oil, he loads the man on his own animal, his own beast of burden, and took him to an inn, and then paid to take care of his comfort for indefinite period. Love is other-oriented, self-sacrificial, choice-based love. That's agape love in the Bible. And this man checks off all the lists. He's focused on the other. It doesn't matter if this man is my political, religious, moral enemy. He's in need. He's hurting. So it's my responsibility to help him. He's other-oriented. He's self-sacrificial. He does this at cost to himself, and he's very selfless. In our world today, there are racial, political, religious issues that people use to justify not helping each other. I mean, I am recording this on June 2nd, 2020. We're in the middle of it right now in our country. There are police officers violently killing black men. There are rioters who are violently killing police officers or attacking police officers and destroying property and hurting many people. Violence begets violence, and hate begets hate. This parable, Luke 10, challenges us to do something. And here's what it challenges us to do. Love your enemies. Love your enemies. There's a lot of heat in our world, but not a lot of light. We should be the light. You can disagree with someone politically and religiously, but still love them. You don't have to be on the same page with everybody. and in every cultural situation, but you can still love them. So let's ask ourselves, are we binding up the wounds of those who are hurting, or are we leaving people for dead? Are we neglecting? Are we ignoring? Are we hurting? The parable challenges us today as much as it does then. Will we be able to care for our enemies who are also our neighbors? Will we be able to bind up their wounds, or are we going to blow up their cities? Can we imagine that they might do the same for us? Or will we leave that wounded traveler on the road? Well, Jesus challenges us. And he'll challenge us again next time in the next parable. We'll talk about that next time we take 5. I'll see you then.